Buffalo Bills are back in first place in the AFC, taking back the number 1 seed. Today was a lot of fun. We got to see losses from the Titans. They got thrashed by the Eagles. We got to see the Jets kind of a comeback against the Minnesota Vikings, fall short. Mike White come back down to earth, and he'll get his welcome back to reality next week with Buffalo. Then at the 4 o'clock hour, just an incredible run of games. Getting the Bengals taking care of business with the Chiefs to tie the Bills and the Chiefs at the best record, both sitting there at 9-3, and because of the head-to-head win, the Bills have the tiebreaker there. And watching San Francisco with the win against Miami, even though having a backup quarterback, being able to take it home with the win there against Miami, knocking them a game behind.
What's up, guys? Number one again.
There we go. Yeah,
always has been.
I won't lie. I knew all the possibilities, but I didn't expect literally every single one to go correctly all in the same day.
No.
I kind of thought we'd have to chip away at it for a while. Out of all the stuff that happened today, I think by far the most important, looking ahead at the schedule, was the Bengals over the Chiefs, because there is not another loss on that Chiefs schedule the rest of the way. There is short of some fluky weird thing, but they're going to be big favorites in every single remaining game. So getting that one today was big.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, my only concern with it's fun right now in the celebration, but there's still a lot of season left, right? Even for the Bills, they've got to take care of work here these next 2 weeks, especially. And then now that Cincinnati game, also they're playing hot football at the right time, which is exactly what the Bengals did last year, riding into the playoffs. So there's tons of things to celebrate and memes to share and being excited about being in the 1 seed. But those other teams also and also I think the San Francisco 49ers probably, I don't know what's going to be going on with Jimmy G, but that team looks good too, in terms of who maybe the Bills could face in the Super Bowl. So some really good teams, but a lot of good football today, man.
Yeah, oh yeah. I will say I'm pretty sure that I just saw it official that Jimmy G has a broken foot.
Ooh.
And I was watching it live, and it was one of those nasty ones where I wasn't sure if we saw the fracture or the dislocation, but you could see the visceral pop.
I did not see it live.
It was bad. Oh, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was not good. It was not good.
You could tell right away. We were watching the Miami game as well. You could tell right away that it was tough, and they really got beat up in that game, physically. They San Francisco obviously plays hard, but they really took it to Miami, and that's one of those games that might have a lingering effect on Miami even next week, because they really physically got dominated.
Yeah, well, and add into that, Jalen Waddle had to go get checked out and was struggling, and he's obviously a huge factor for them. I don't know how long term Teron Armstead was for them, but obviously, they got physically pushed around a little bit. I won't lie, I was nervous when Sherfield took that opening play 75 yards. I was like, God, don't let them boat race a really good defense like San Francisco. But then they really buckled down and got serious about it.
Yeah, but
you felt like you. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say it also showed me some of my worst takes of the year have been what I had to say about Mike McDaniel when they hired him and him being a fraud as a coach. This offense is another level. That San Francisco defense is very good, and the way that they were still able to put up some explosive points, when they still made that a game, even though they got buried a little bit in that game, because they can explode at any point. And so even in a loss, I still look at that offense and think, man, that's one of the top tier defenses in the NFL. And yeah, the Bills are too, but I have more and more respect every time I'm watching Miami and how explosive that offense can be when it's clicking.
He left a lot. He left a couple throws on the field too. They had Hill and Waddle a couple times where they were schemed open, and he and Tua, especially in the first half, was really erratic. Probably the most erratic I've seen him all year.
Yeah, it was. He had been really, really consistent with the accuracy, and today you could tell that. One, Bosa is a freak.
Oh my God,
that dude is a monster. But you could tell it was in the back of Tua's mind all the time, because he was like he started to get those happy feet and the like seeing ghost stuff where he was bailing from clean pockets and throwing it before the pressure was even there. And you could tell he was rattled a little bit, and that early pressure from San Francisco was really getting to him over time, and that it was more than, oh my God, I think anybody watching Sunday Night Football, CD Lamb just did one of those plays where you spin around and it kind of looks like you're getting tackled, but you're sitting on the player, and he just put his hand down and kept running. And I think he might have scored. I don't know if he was ever down. Ready?
I'm currently doing dishes.
Oh,
for
no,
dinner.
that's a touchdown. Oh, that's
That is
crazy.
a touchdown.
That's a touchdown. That's awesome.
So do we know, has any of the stalkers on Twitter or anything found out, is Odell in Dallas tonight?
The rumor
his visit's tomorrow, right?
Yeah, so I don't know if he flew in tonight or they hosting him.
If Jerry was smart, he would.
Yeah, if he was smart, he'd host him at the game tonight.
Don't like that.
But that's all right. All we gotta do is root for a Colts upset here.
That's it. Ugh. Wait. when you say it out loud.
Did you guys watch the Jets game? Was kind of interesting too, right? Like that was one of those frustrating games for me, watching the Vikings kind of implode, and I kind of wondered how the Bills lost to either one of those teams.
Well, it's a week to week. Yeah. That's hard, right? It's a week to week matchup.
Of course,
league. They all present different. My takeaway from that Jets game a little bit was: are the Jets are they a dirty team? Like I felt like there was a lot of extra chippy kind of dirtiness to how the Jets were playing in that game. And I didn't think that of them. I didn't think Saleh's team was like a dirty team. I know it of kind of Miami and Wilkins and some of that defensive stuff, but I didn't like what I was seeing, the extra stuff from the Jets today.
They have a lot of swagger. They play with swagger, and I think sometimes that swagger probably goes a little too far. And you're right; they were edgy today, right? Like you felt like they were edgy, and a couple of times there was a little bit late extra, and you could see how the Vikings were reacting to them.
Yeah. Kirk Cousins doesn't want that smoke.
Oh God, yeah, no. That is not.
It was Chuck and Duck. It was Chuck and Duck the whole second half.
It really was.
Yeah. That's not Kirk's energy there. So, guys, I can't see everybody here, but I got a couple people that sent messages. So if anybody wants to come up and talk, I sent out a couple invites.
It seems like there's some bug in spaces here tonight.
Elon's got something cooking here tonight. We'll see.
Don't say that. Your mentions will melt. Do not.
All right, so let's go through a couple of the games while we're here talking. Watching the Chiefs Bengals game, are you? I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask anyway. So I'll start with you, Josh. Are you more excited about the Chiefs' loss, or are you more nervous that the Bengals are like legitimately maybe in our tier?
So I was at my friend Sammy's house, and we were watching, all the 1 o'clock and then the 4 o'clock, and we ended up finding ourselves kind of rooting for Baltimore there at the end, because I think you'd rather have Baltimore win the division than Cincy, because I think honestly Cincy's probably the scariest team from a matchup standpoint for the Bills in the playoffs. Obviously in the January game. But then, those receivers, I feel like they could walk in anywhere under any conditions and win. So as much as I was rooting for them at the end of the game for Cincy, but man, they're scary. Like they're really scary. And to me, their offense is scarier than Kansas City's.
Yeah, I'll say. I mean, it's the lesser of evils. So the answer is obviously the Chiefs' loss is more important. We needed the number one seed, but it is a lesser of evils. Like it really the fact that they can just chuck it up there to Chase and Higgins when they need a play, and then they have a pass rush, like those two things by themselves, that's legit. Like when you have a pass rush and you got two alpha receivers who are both wide receiver 1 level guys that you can just chuck it up there, on the right night, you could beat anybody.
That little third and six bubble that they had to chase, that they needed to get the first down. I could just see that, at Highmark Stadium in January with the Bills unable to tackle. I see that in your nightmares.
Yeah.
I do think the thing that concerns me about Cincinnati is the balance in the run game and their ability to stick to that with the type of weapons that they have, and that just keeps you on your heels as a defense, because if they can get 100+ yards and whatever, what did he get?
God, how many checkdowns did Pirine have tonight?
Yeah, he had like 100 yards on the ground and another 60 in the air.
I'm looking
with
right
some
now.
of the check
106 on the ground, and then the fact that he only had 6 catches is shocking. It felt like a dozen.
Yes, and that type of like ability to be patient, ability to stick to having a ground game, attacking with the checkdowns, that is difficult. The Bills defense wants you to take a lot of plays to go down the field, but this team can score in the red zone too. So with that balance is what scares me about Cincy. But ultimately, it comes down to QB, and I do like Burrow, but Patrick Mahomes still scares me the most. Like, other matchups aside, I've seen Patrick Mahomes single-handedly break the back of the Buffalo Bills defense, and I don't want any part of that in terms of if there's a matchup I want, it's not Kansas City, right?
Well, and it's crazy because, I mean, the AFC playoffs, there is no, like, it doesn't matter. There's no easy path. There's no easy route. You're going to have to go through a combination of Tua and Jalen Waddle, or Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, or Mahomes and Kelsey, or whoever. Like, it's going to be scary no matter what you do. Maybe we get lucky and one of the games is Baltimore or Tennessee. And obviously getting the bye is huge, just because not having to face one of them is a major one. And right now, it could set up where, we could have Miami versus KC in the first round.
I was going to ask you guys, like, who do you think is the most dangerous team if we have the number one? Who would you want to see play KC in that second round? Probably Miami, right?
I mean, obviously Cincinnati again. Since Cincinnati's won 3 straight, they've won 3 straight against them. I'll take that chance of knocking them out. But Cincy or Miami can throw the haymakers on offense to hang in a shootout. If KC gets rolling against Baltimore, Tennessee, and I don't even think any other team matters. I guess maybe if the Chargers get their crap together, but technically as of today, the Jets are the 7th seed, so that's a joke. I don't know that any other team is really going to matter. I mean, what is it? It's the Jets, New England, the Chargers. I mean, technically the Raiders aren't eliminated. Yeah. Technically the Browns aren't eliminated, but no one there. I guess the Chargers, if they got their crap together, could at least put together enough of a game for it to matter. But yeah, if we can get Miami or Cincinnati against KC in the first round, that would be ideal. And guess what? We play those 2 teams and can give them each a loss to knock them back a seed lower.
Yeah, and the ideal scenario is you get like New England to pull out a miracle against one of those teams, and then you get New England at home for an easy playoff when you get some team to just come out of nowhere and give you a miracle playoff. Dumping of a better team.
Jets pull off an upset or something.
Yeah.
You feel like Tennessee might have a puncher's chance. You remember that game earlier in the year. If they would have had even a below average quarterback, they win that game in KC.
Anytime you have Vrabel and Derrick Henry, you can put together a recipe. Hey, big play Indianapolis.
I know, I saw that.
All right.
You know what, though? I don't want to sound like a worrywart, but I kind of don't want any part of a veteran team that has playoff experience and a run game that can travel anywhere in the playoffs. Like, I do hope they get a weird matchup, Tennessee, and just kind of exit the playoffs. Like, that's one of those teams that could get hot at the right time. Like, I don't trust Tannehill all that much, but if they can lean into that run game in the playoffs, that's like... You can go on an annoying run.
Tier, like, I mean, obviously, I'd rather them than Kansas City or Cincinnati, and honestly,
for sure,
honestly, probably more than Miami. But maybe they'd be above Baltimore. They'd be above the Jets.
What I thought Indy was.
The
last couple years, right?
Yeah,
where it's
I wasn't excited about Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, decent. Got some decent interior defensive linemen. They can stop your run. They can get a run game going. I don't like that recipe in January.
So real quick before I go back to Josh or Chris for anything here, anybody who wants to be able to come up and talk, reply to the invite here, because I'm seeing the replies. So I've seen Mexico Marty replied, Patty Brads, Travis, Andy, a lot of guys that we go back and forth with. Any of you guys that want to come up and talk, just send a reply, and I'll bring you guys up on stage if you guys want to ask a question or say anything, because otherwise I can't see anyone that raises their hand or asks to be able to talk, because again, Twitter's being weird tonight.
Colts.
But beauty. There we go. Back in the lead. Ashton Doolin. So yeah, anybody that wants to come up and ask a question, I don't think I can see the raise your hand thing like normal. So just come up and reply back with a message, and I'll send you an invite. All right. So anything else? I mean, for Cincy, the fact that they have Pirine doesn't even look like a drop off from Mixon, but honestly, I mean, Mixon is even more explosive than him and can do even more there. That is dangerous balance that they have between their pass game and run game.
Have we seen any update on Lamar?
I heard PCL.
Oh.
So I don't know that it's season ending, but it doesn't look great. I don't think it looks wonderful.
They should have just given him a contract.
Oh my gosh. If that was a serious injury, that would honestly be sad. It'd be a shame. Right now, Baltimore is in sole possession of the AFC North based on the head-to-head win percentage, but obviously Baltimore and Cincy play each other to end the season. So Cincy's got quite a run here. So they're at 8-4 and have a good record, but they go Deshaun, back for the Browns, then at Tampa Bay with Brady, at the Patriots, then the Bills, and then the Ravens. So I don't know if there's any gimmies left on their schedule. Obviously, I think they can win any of those games, but probably should win Browns, Buccaneers, Patriots. But they got some tough games left. That's going to be tough for them to go. They might be a nasty wild card for some team to deal with. And it's not impossible that last game of the season basically is a playoff game, because that could decide the division and who gets home field in a matchup. That last game of the Week 18, Baltimore and Cincy. Aaron, anything? Eric's up here if he wants to come in and say hi. Just finished. If anybody who didn't check it out after we get done here, make sure you go over to the YouTube channel with just an awesome film room between Chris Trapasso and Eric breaking down everything from the game and everything that we saw in Bills Patriots. Make sure you guys go check it out. Aaron, anything else on Cincy and KC?
No, not so much. I actually wanted to ask you guys, or whoever is speaking, sort of a question about this. I was watching that Jets game and at first I was watching how bad Mike White looked and was kind of disappointed, thinking I wanted that game against the Bills. But then it started to pick up in the second half, and he's got to have Jets believe in it even after that loss. And I think that's good going into a Bills game, because I'm not super worried about him facing the Buffalo Bills defense, even as good as he looked in that second half and the weapons that they have. And so I'm interested to see it maybe implode back in their face, because I didn't want him coming off an already bad loss. I want the Bills to be the ones to kind of give that to him.
Yeah, I like them coming in a little bit hot. I like them almost pulling the comeback. I would have been fine if they actually pulled it off. I would have been okay if they pulled it off and came in a little high on themselves. But, I think, they already humbled Mike White once. He did come back, and I mean, it looks good in the raw numbers, but he threw the ball 57 times, and it was 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So even though 369 yards looks fine, but that was a lot of garbage time. A lot.
You didn't feel like he made a lot of premium throws.
Nope.
A lot of it was the underneath stuff, the off coverage stuff. Not a lot of throws that he would have to make in a close game or against the Bills secondary. The Vikings had the lead, played off, and you felt like he didn't make any when he needed to make a throw. He didn't make them.
Well, and on top of that, don't get me wrong, Garrett Wilson's a freak. That dude's going to be a problem in our lives for a decade. But that's all they got is just guys
real
who
facts
can make
right there.
plays for him after the catch.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, you're right. He's going to be a problem for a long time.
Yeah, unfortunately. But that's all right. Until they figure out the quarterback, it doesn't really matter. We know that life. We know that life.
And I think more than other teams, maybe not, I don't know, this year, but Trey's going to win a lot of those battles over the years too. Probably more so than a lot of other teams will.
Yeah, he's going to get his here and there, but he's not going to roast Trey for an entire game.
But elite wide receivers definitely scare me a lot more than elite running backs too, because we've been shutting those guys down.
Did you guys have any thoughts about the NFC games? The Giants Redskins Commanders game, was an interesting time management clinic at the end. I don't know if you guys saw that.
No, did they take turns throwing up on themselves?
It was
Dable,
disgusting.
Dable kind of played for the tie. It was a little weird, and then they had like another opportunity. You felt like because I'm sure they can't win the division, and a tie for them being 7-4 when the Commanders were 7-5 keeps them a game ahead for the wild card. So it's kind of interesting to watch the last few minutes of that. It really did feel like the Giants were playing for the tie.
Yeah, where they had a 4th and 3 with about a minute and a half left in overtime, and they were on the plus side of the field, and they punted. And yeah, like you said, it was clear. It was clear that they were playing for the tie. I did hear somebody say that there's a chance that all 4 NFC East teams could make the playoffs, which would be the first time that's ever happened. I mean, obviously, we just expanded to a 7-team playoff not too long ago, so it hasn't been a possibility for that long, but that might happen this year.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the standings, it's not even crazy. Like the Jets right now have like a full game lead on the last one. In the NFC East, it's chance all 8 East division teams could make it.
The Seahawks pulled one out late, or else I think it would be all the NFC East teams in the playoff spot, right?
Yeah. I'm looking right now. I think so. Did that shift the NFC? Did that kick? Yeah, as of today, yeah, that did bump. Put Seattle ahead of Washington, but tied. They're still there, and Washington actually has a tie. So, that's interesting. How about Detroit being next, but the Rams giving them the draft pick? That's fantastic.
Detroit looked explosive. Detroit looked fantastic today.
Yeah, dude.
Every drive, every drop back was a threat. I love their play calling. They looked really explosive.
Man, no one should feel bad about the Bills playing them close. Seriously, no one should feel bad about that.
How you look at the talent they have there. Amon-Ra St. Brown now getting Jamison Williams back. What if you give them Bryce Young or Stroud
Tom Brady
or whoever? Tom Brady, Jesus,
going back to Michigan. Why not?
Seriously, I mean, but put a real quarterback there. I mean, they're going to have. I mean, as of right now, I think the Rams are legitimately giving them like the 2nd or 3rd pick in the draft.
Make it Caleb Williams and keep that dude out of the AFC, please.
Yeah, whoever is that stud quarter. Is Williams eligible this year, or does he have one more year?
No, he's not eligible.
Okay. I think Williams isn't until 2024. But yes, I don't want anything to do with that dude.
No.
So here's another fun hypothetical. If you're Seattle and you have Denver's pick, with the way Geno Smith's playing, let's say Denver ends up with the 2nd or the 3rd pick and they give it to Seattle, what do you do?
Man,
you go for the future. You don't ride the future on Geno Smith. Let him be a bridge. Sit a guy. I don't know.
Unless your coach is 75 years old.
Yeah. Well, maybe he's the reason. I mean, one, you could do the monster trade down.
Yes.
You get like the crazy sweetheart deal. Because, I mean, Geno, you could sign Geno to a legit, I mean, he's what, 30?
We've seen these types of stories come crashing down the following seasons. Like we've also seen it continue into a guy's late career where there's a kind of a renaissance, but
Flacco. Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be worried but Geno you're right. He's signed a 75-year-old coach. He's probably not thinking too far into the future.
He's 32 years old. Man.
You keep him on a cheap 2-year deal, and you're Pete Carroll. Do you really want to go and get Bryce Young or whatever? I mean, because you're signing up for 2-3 years.
Well, I mean, what it does let you do is, let's say you think there's really high upside with is it Levis or Levi's? How do you say his name? Levis?
Oh yeah, Will Levis.
Levis, okay. So Levis seems like the upside guy, like the tools, like what Josh Allen light kind of player that has he's big and athletic and has a cannon. Is there a guy like that who you think needs time and you could sell yourself that, hey, we got the freebie, just lucking out of bailing on Russ at the right time, so we got a free get out of jail free card. Let's take the high upside guy, let him learn, but franchise tag Geno. Yeah. Geno gets $30 million as a thank you, and then hey, let's see where it goes.
That's what the Bills
have your cake and eat it too.
Bills were hoping not to start Josh Allen year one, right? Like they just couldn't figure that out ahead of him.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Are we talking about replacing Geno Smith right now?
Well, not now. But it's got to be an inevitable conversation that they're having because
They're
he's
going to be
forcing
faced with
this.
that. Yeah.
He's forcing this conversation now for them. Is like, now what are we going to do? Because he's playing well enough to have that conversation, right?
This is one of my favorite storylines of this
It's the best
season.
It's the
Geno
best.
Smith's
Dude, an age
resurgence.
32 breakout season.
Yeah,
It's
it's
absurd.
amazing.
It's absurd.
I was so high on him coming out of the draft. I wanted the Bills to get him so bad. I was like, this guy's the guy. And now I can always say nobody's ever a bust. Right?
Yeah,
Like they just got to get in the right situation.
He breaks every metric. Like it's impossible.
He's got.
They have Denver's pick 2 years in a row, right? Because they could. So Denver could be just as bad next year too.
Oh, dude, Russ is the gift that keeps on giving.
I love how he has turned into a universal bad guy.
Oh my God,
nobody likes him. This is universal.
It's crazy when you look. Like this is going to be. Matter of fact, I think I can make the case that right now this is a worse trade than the Herschel Walker trade. So the Herschel Walker trade is always going to go down as the worst trade in NFL history, but only because who the Cowboys chose with the picks. So, when it ends up being those, pillar, cornerstone players, that's why it's remembered that way. But when you look at the fact of the Broncos are married to him for $231 million, they have no choice but to stick with him through like 2026. Like they have no out, not only this year, but 2023, 2024, 2025. They cannot get out of that contract. They are with him for 3 more years, plus 2 firsts, plus 2 seconds. This is in line to be the worst trade in NFL history. And the owners, the Walton family, of Walmart fame, just bought into the NFL and have to be asking themselves, oh my God, what did we get into?
A lot of people think they made that trade to help, the sale value of the team.
Yeah, that's absolutely logical. Because Russ,
they traded for him right during the bidding process, and on top of it all, Greg, you're right. The Herschel Walker trade is like the perfect comp, but his teammates also hate him.
Yeah.
Well, that's
now,
the big thing there.
Fact that, like, literally, who was the defensive lineman coming off the field last week? Yeah, Mike Purcell, literally screaming in his face to go do something.
Yo,
the stat: if they scored 18 or more points in every game this season, they'd now be 10-1.
This Dallas defense is
Matt
pretty
Ryan,
aggressive. They're different.
Ryan. Yeah, another game today. If they simply score 18 points or more, the Broncos would now be 10-1. Their defense is ridiculous.
Yeah,
and so the Broncos have given up fewer points than the Bills. The Bills have an awesome defense. The Broncos have given up fewer points than the Bills, and they're 3-9.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
All of this seems just like a total dereliction of duty by people involved, and like the type of contract you're giving out, marrying them to Nathaniel Hackett there too.
Oh God!
Like, what are you guys doing? And the worst part
hire Hackett early, thinking he was the lure for Rodgers, and then through.
Yes.
That's exactly what happened. So on our podcast on If the Walls Could Talk in Buffalo, Don, was the director of football admin when Nate Hackett was here with Doug Marrone, and Don is very, judicious in what he says sometimes about former coaches and all, but wasn't a big Nate Hackett fan, and one of those guys who, when they came through, he's made it very clear that he did not think that he was going to be a successful head coach, but he was Aaron Rodgers' boy, right? Like that was the whole play. That's why they hired him.
Yeah. What a whiff. And I mean, I don't have any ill will for I don't like Titans fans. I don't really like Jaguars. There's some non-divisional ones that I don't like them. I don't have any ill will for Broncos fans.
No,
so
I don't at all.
I'm not screw them. I'm glad they're screwed. But stepping away from that, they are screwed. There is no hope for this franchise for an extended window forward.
The worst part is outside of the money that you're invested is what you guys both already talked about, which is his teammates don't like him, and you're not going to get with everything that's out there about Russ now. You're not going to get anybody to want to come play with your team. You're going to be that position that sort of what people thought Buffalo was for a while. Like it's going to be a place that people don't want to be, in the NFL, and that's hard to dig your way out of that, especially when you're tied to that QB, man. Oh, just gross.
This is where we make the comparison to our quarterback and how amazing and awesome a person he is.
Dude, here's the thing.
God.
Like they were in, like, wasn't Elway in on Allen big time?
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine having to look at the Bills now and be why didn't we just why didn't we go all in on that?
I think Kevin's on here as well, and he'll help me with some of the draft names. But look back, how many tall, athletic, lanky project quarterbacks did John Elway take his wings on? And then the one who comes through, who could have been your unicorn, that's the one where you go for the defensive
That's
end?
not far up the road, dude. Wyoming from Denver. Like, your scouts
They should have been in on that.
You're in on
They should have
that.
been. That's a huge miss.
He probably had PTSD from Brock Osweiler.
Well, but Osweiler, Lynch, those are the two names I couldn't put my finger on.
Who was their quarterback going into that season? I don't remember.
Was it Luck? Or was that too?
No, they had Luck. Yeah, because that's what they just got out of. They had Luck.
Yeah, and it was new in his. It was early in his career.
They had Luck in Bridgewater. Yeah, they had the combo of Luck and Bridgewater.
Those poor fans, man. Good for us.
All right, so here's one other fan base, and here's a good one that I think always comes up because people ask me this kind of version of this question all the time. Do you think any Rams fan regrets anything, or hey, it doesn't matter, we got the ring, the parade was awesome, and that this sucks now and it's gonna suck a lot for a while, but it was worth it still.
Yeah, no, give me the ring every time.
Yeah, I think so too. But they're gonna pay for it for a while. They haven't had a top 50 pick since 2017, and they don't have one coming up for the next couple years. There's no guarantee Stafford's gonna play. And the combination of Stafford, Aaron Donald, and Cooper Kupp account for $100 million, just the three of them, for the next 2 seasons.
I don't.
Yeah,
dude, I would. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was just gonna say. I mean, we were talking about OBJ and spaces, and then we got a lot of YouTube comments about it, saying how bringing in OBJ was gonna crush our cap situation. It's kind of like the Rams, and I'm like, no, it's not the same thing.
No,
it's definitely not the same.
No, real quick, I'm actually going to do a show sometime coming up soon here after the OBJ thing happens, laying out the cap situation, options we have, and everything that's there. And I will say we are getting ourselves much closer to the Saints or even the Rams type situation where we are going to be in a position where we now don't have a choice, but every offseason you're going to see, the Bills have restructured X, Y, and Z. The Bills have, actioned the option bonus in this contract, or, the Bills have, triggered this thing in the contract or restructured that deal. We're going to be that team now going forward for a while, but Brandon Beane has also given himself a ton of those options, and he's done it with players who are more sustainable long term, and we didn't do it where we gave up every single draft pick for the past 5 years. So we still have a pipeline of younger talent coming in to be cheaper for depth, and that's what screwed the Rams. Is they traded all those picks for guaranteed guys, and they were good. Jalen Ramsey's awesome. Matthew Stafford was great for them last year, but you traded away all your high-end cheap depth. So now if anyone gets hurt, you have nothing. You have to be carried by that group when you go stars and scrubs. When you lose the stars, all you have left is the scrubs.
Yeah, that's the biggest difference in this is I'm not worried about Brandon Beane getting close up to the cap and even getting scary, right? Because I do think also it's going to grow more than everybody's projecting in their books. I think that when the betting money comes in, the cap's going to just continue to rise, and we're not even going to worry about some of these deals that Brandon Beane has signed over the last few years that we are currently worried about. Like you said, you're going to have coupons, you're going to have restructures. We're not even going to care about them. They're going to look fantastic. Every time these deals happen, they look fantastic 6 months later when we see what other teams are doing anyway. So those things I'm not worried about. If he started dipping into the picks too much, I'm for it. Greg, you and I were talking about getting rid of picks,
Diggs, and it was fine.
Yeah,
but I'm not looking to do that every year.
But we talked about
first,
for
second,
Hunter. We were like, yeah, let's go get a splash guy before they got Vaughn. There was that kind of talk. Like, I'm willing to do that, but not in the way how aggressive Snead went. Like, he was really kind of F them picks and F the future consistently year over year. Like, you could do it a couple of times and go all in, but man, that aggression really is what buries them.
Yeah, Rise and Grind just sent a reply here that we were saying we were out of money, and then Bean went and signed 11 free agents, including 120 million
every time.
Miller.
The only good part about Snead doing that was it looked like he and McVay were toasted after that first round when they came out for the press conference when they laughed about Cole Strange.
Oh, they were 100%.
They didn't have anything to do all night. Yeah, they're just drinking, making fun of the Patriots. So that was fun and worth all their suffering. Yeah.
Two quick points here. I don't know if you guys saw the graphic. I don't remember which game it was today, but they had a picture. I think it was the Cleveland game, and they had a picture of the guaranteed money for quarterbacks. Josh Allen is already only 5th on the guaranteed money list of quarterbacks, so his contract is already a bargain.
Just going to be a bargain, more and more of a bargain every year.
Yep. Secondly, I saw an article this morning about the cap spike for next year. Some of the new TV deals kick in, and they also haven't picked an outlet yet for Sunday Ticket.
Yep.
So they were talking about how the cap might go to like 222 million, which is 13 or 14% higher. And there's also some kind of deferral from the 2020 season where the owners like artificially lowered the cap because of the pandemic that they kind of owe to the players. So there might be another like 1 year spike, like a small, like $3 or $4 million extra. So for a team like the Bills, obviously, as high as that can go, it's a competitive advantage going forward.
Oh yeah. Any team that has already locked up talent versus the other teams are going to be, oh, look, we have even more cap space. But yeah, everyone has cap space. So when you're out there trying to compete over, hey, who's the team that's going to give Lamar Jackson $60 million per year, you're competing against other teams trying to spend. The teams who have already locked up talent long term, each of those deals are going to look better and better and age much better and better as they go. So yeah, it's really well said. That's going to be a big piece of it. And it's another piece that Aaron brought up that I've talked about earlier is a lot of people quickly go to the TV money. They're not thinking about the gambling revenue. The gambling revenue that has just washed in is going to add a ton of additional money that would have been its own boost and now is going to add in on top of the huge TV deals. So some of the years that we're going to be 13 or 14, now all of a sudden we're going to have an 18, and then we're going to have a 20, and then we're going to have a 25 and $30 million increase over the next couple years where you could have some really huge spikes.
Speaking of which, should we talk about BetUS real quick?
Hey, there we go. Yeah, our awesome partnership. Anybody who hasn't had a chance to check it out, we have an awesome partnership with BetUS. You're able to go on and use promo code Cover1, and you can get either a $50 free bet. So if you're not familiar with betting, you just want to play around, you don't have to deposit anything. You can just go in, get $50 for free to play with and test things out and try a couple free bets. Or if you're more into it, you can actually get 125% match up to $2,500. So if you're a bigger gambler and you want to deposit $1,000, they'll give you $1,250 for free by using promo code Cover1. So it's one of the reasons we partnered with them is that's the best sign-up bonus that I've seen across the market.
One of the reasons is because you wanted the sign-up bonus.
It's also because I wanted that sign-up bonus. But that's just peripheral benefits. But yeah, it really is a fantastic sign-up bonus for anybody that's more into that. Or like I said, if you're not really super into it, but you want to play around a little bit, you can just go get $50 for free and be able to play around and do that. We have the link and the promo code in all of our show descriptions and on the website on cover1.net as well.
Yo,
let me ask you guys again.
I just want to say, yeah, I gotta go and I gotta get ready for bed, man. It's gonna get close to my bedtime here, but thanks for setting this up, Greg, because it's fun, right? Go Bills!
I love it, man.
All right, man. Thanks, guys.
Later.
All right, Josh.
All right, let me ask you guys a gambling question here. How do you feel about the emotional hedge? Let's say the Bills are in the AFC Championship game. What amount, or is it kosher? Do you put some money on whoever they're playing? Would you do the same in the Super Bowl, or is that like bad juju?
So I don't. I know people who do. I know people who bet against their team. So that either you win money or you're happy. But
I'll do that. Yeah.
There isn't an amount of money that would ever work for me. I usually am the opposite and have to talk myself out of betting on the Bills because I'm always so biased and always think they're going to win anyways. So that's usually been half my battle is trying to balance doing that. But I am not an emotional hedge guy. I can't operate that way.
I like it, Greg, because then you start rooting against yourself in terms of like, I want to lose my bet. So I think it kind of gives you that headspace of being excited about like losing it, and then like when you check your account the next day, you're like, yes, I made that bet.
Yeah. So I will to Josh's point though. I will do that. I didn't today, but I have in the past. Today would be a good example where I would have bet on the Dolphins and bet on the Chiefs. So either the result happened that I wanted or I won money. And then I won't do it with the Bills, but I will do that in other games like that where
so you're close.
My rooting interest or like who I want to win, either I'm happy or I win money. I will do that, but not with the Bills.
You're close.
I may or may not have taken the 2-team Kansas City Miami parlay today and figured if I lose it, at least we got one.
There we go. I respect it.
Thank you for doing your part.
It's certainly better than being
will not go unnoticed
already, guys.
What was that, Kevin?
I said it's certainly better than being stuck in tiebreaker discussions I did not want to be a part of.
Oh God,
it was my fault.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not a guarantee that the Bills are going to run the table. The Bengals game is going to be tough. The Dolphins game is going to be tough. But at a minimum, they control their own destiny. So if they win out, we have to worry about nothing. And every week we're going to be in the same boat where now, at minimum, the Chiefs don't have a gimme extra bye week where they get to rest their guys. Everybody's going to have to pay attention all the way through week 18. And now I'm pretty happy that Patriots game is week 18 because even if they try their hardest, it doesn't seem like it matters.
You might get zappy at that point too, right?
Bailey's happy time.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good point. Like obviously, like we run the table, they're good. Like that's like duh. Like there's no real reason to like tweet that. My tweet earlier was more or less a fact of look, the Dolphins actually just earned the tiebreaker over the Bills tonight, so. They can't have a tied record in almost every. I did a bunch of permutations. In almost every permutation, the Dolphins have the tiebreaker. That's what I found interesting. That's all.
Oh, wait, say that
they
again?
won the tiebreaker by losing?
Yeah, they won. So the way the tiebreaker works in the division is common opponents, right? So San Francisco's an uncommon opponent that they lost to. What did the Bills do? They won their 3 uncommon games against Kansas City, against the Rams, and against the Titans. So in order for them to be tied, the Dolphins have to have a better common opponent's tiebreaker. So their common opponent's tiebreaker is won by the Dolphins tonight, as well as, obviously, if they lose division games, to tie it up, they'd win the division tiebreaker that way. Or obviously, if they beat the Bills, they'd have the tiebreaker there, too.
Remind us where the common opponent tiebreaker falls in the hierarchy of tiebreakers.
It's third, and it's used more frequently than you think. It's just not in AFC East history because there's usually a dominant team.
But we're not as familiar with the division tiebreakers because it hasn't mattered for 20 years.
Everyone defaults to AFC record. That is the playoff tiebreaker once you're a wild card team. And we're always looking at wild card teams in the history of the Bills. But as you look at the division to make sure you secure the 1 seed, say you're more competing against the Dolphins than you are the Chiefs, let's just say, the common opponent's tiebreakers is the tiebreaker. Because usually you are tied with division record in 1-1, 1-1. So the scenarios there would be the Dolphins earn the tiebreaker. You can't be tied with the Dolphins. How about that? There's no permutation.
Yeah, we need to win the head-to-head anyways to cancel out the head-to-head tiebreaker. If we win in their head-to-head, that would be at that point assuming that we beat the Jets and assuming that they win, that would put us 2 games ahead, and then we would be in pretty good shape. If we get to that point where we win, and beat them, and we're sitting there at 11-3, and they're sitting there at 9-5, that would be a pretty good spot to be in.
Do you guys know if Miami is staying out west this week?
That is super interesting. So let's talk about that here. So the reason Josh brings that up for everybody who's listening, So right now, the Dolphins were in San Francisco playing against the 49ers. Next Sunday, they play at the Chargers in Los Angeles. So their choice is, do they stay out west or do they come back to Miami, which is even a longer flight than back to Buffalo, all the way down to the tip of Florida, then back to Los Angeles, and then it's a Sunday night game. So the turnaround from San Francisco to Sunday night isn't bad, but there's a lot of chatter that the Bills and Dolphins could be the Saturday night primetime game where we don't know if it's going to be 12-17 or 12-18. It could be the Saturday game on 12-17. So you could be talking about the Dolphins coming off 3 straight road trips, 2 of them on the West Coast, and a Sunday night game where I don't know that the NFL is going to flex Buffalo or the Dolphins into back-to-back Sunday night games. They could, because they're Sunday night next week. So I don't know if they'd flex them into back-to-back, but it's possible. As the Dolphins-Bills is a good game. But either way, it's either going to be a Saturday night where the Dolphins are coming in on an early or on a short turnaround off a West Coast trip, or the Bills could be the Sunday night game versus the Dolphins. But Kevin, what would you think? Do you think that we'll see it flexed, or do you think that they'll move? I think it's a primetime game either way. I think it's either Saturday night or Sunday night, but I think it's like 50-50 between the two.
Yeah, the 2 questions there for you. I think the first question about would they stay out west. Brandon Beam has alluded to this. Was it COVID year or maybe it was 19? He said they don't like to stay out west. So I'm not sure, obviously, if the Dolphins are, they follow suit with what the Bills' rationale there is. Like you said, it's a little longer.
If I remember right, the Patriots often do. I think they're the
Okay.
team. I remember them. They're one who does stay out west.
Okay, that's interesting. And I just remember finding that pretty interesting because I was like a proponent of, maybe they should stay out west. But then I remember Brandon Bean saying, no, they find, and then aren't they also the team that the Bills also like to not come any more than like minimum game time before game time?
Yes, I know that they don't even like to do. They pretend that the body clock doesn't change, which I actually know business travelers who do this. Where hey, make it the minimal amount of time. Just don't change your watches or clocks at all. Just pretend like it's still 8 a.m. even though it's 11 a.m. there, or vice versa, or 11 a.m. when it says it's 8 a.m. Just keep going by your own body clock. We are going to go the minimum amount of time, get our work done, and come home. Don't even pay attention to what the clock says. Just keep moving.
Deal with the jet lag after the game.
I'm
yeah, correct.
Like that, yeah,
correct. I actually know people who operate that way successfully for years of business travel. So it's I don't know that it's better or worse, but it's valid. I know people who swear by it.
Yeah, and I'm in that camp for sure when I business travel. I don't like to change my schedule up, and I think that there's probably some science behind why the Bills think that way.
Sure,
but
I'm sure
anyway,
there's
like look at the weather situation, right? Wasn't this just relevant when everyone was yelling at them for not traveling Thursday? And like, look, there's a human element to this, right? Like, I mean, these families are buried in snow; they don't know what snow's like, and you have Jordan Poyer and Rachel Bush out there shoveling. Like, there's a human element to this. Where like they want to interrupt as least amount of their personal schedule as possible.
Speaking of shoveling, Kevin, I remember you brought this up in the spaces that week of the storm. You said that the players aren't allowed to shovel. Do you know? I mean, obviously, we saw that players were shoveling during that storm, but it was kind of a necessity, right?
That's that's not feasible.
What's the situation there though? Like, are they, do they get fined by the team if it's not an extenuating circumstance sort of situation?
A Christmas lights installer in Buffalo, in Orchard Park specifically, and in their contract, the players had told them they're not allowed to hang Christmas lights or shovel. Now, do they shovel a little bit of their pathway and get in trouble? I would assume not. But they are not supposed to shovel, is what we've been told, like per their agreement, or hang Christmas lights. So,
hey, Greg. Don's in the spaces somewhere, and I don't know if he's requested to speak or not, but he might be the perfect person to answer some of these contract questions.
I was going to say, wouldn't he know that for sure? Wouldn't he know that?
Give me
he sure would.
There we go. I just sent Don an invite. So Don, if you're listening, I just sent you the invite to be able to come up and talk.
This is like the get out spaces. Everyone's in the sunken place right now.
Yeah, seriously, I don't know where people are stuck or who can say what. It's so weird.
And Greg, to answer your first question while we wait for Don, I think that FCC thing was that was interesting. That they might be considering Sunday night.
So I saw that I don't know if it was a friend of Yards Per Pass or whoever it was that like is a ham radio guy, and it looks like an FCC request was submitted for a Sunday Night Football broadcast option. So I mean that certainly seems like the thing we don't know is, did they also turn that in for two of the other games that they're considering flexing, and that's just one of the prep elements so that they have all their options available to them? That's what we don't know. Is that a request in case they want it, or is that a definitive thing where it's the only one? But at a minimum, I think it shows that it is absolutely a consideration and a strong likelihood that they're one of the. I think there's only two games. There's Browns and Ravens, there's Commanders and Giants, and there's Bills Dolphins. So you have the flashy quarterback matchup with Deshaun and Lamar. You have the two market matchup with New York and Washington, or you have the two best teams matchup with Buffalo and Dolphins. All three of them you can sell to TV executives. I could see an argument for any of the three. And I think two of them are very obviously going to be probably the 4 p.m. standalone game on Saturday, the 8 p.m. primetime game Saturday, and the Sunday night game. It's just which one do they want to put where?
And is this current Sunday night? Is it the Raiders? Who's the current Sunday night?
Is it? Let me look. I have
Raiders. It's pretty poor.
I do think it's a
Packer. It's either the Packers or the Raiders. I can't remember.
What are the ham radio executives? What game do the ham radio executives want?
So that's week 15. That's week 15, right? 15. Yeah. So week 15, the current one is New England at the Raiders. So yes,
Raiders. Right.
That is a very obvious flex out. I think, did Gilmore just pick off Dak? Yeah, it looks like it. Indy hanging in this game. Indy's hanging. So there are 5 games that they're considering. I rattled off the other 3. It's Miami, Buffalo. It's Baltimore, Cleveland. It's New York, Washington. There's also Atlanta, New Orleans, and Indy, Minnesota. One of those teams will be the 1 p.m. Saturday that nobody cares about game. And then the other one, I don't know what they do with it. It'll go back to Sunday maybe. But
I have a feeling they don't want any part of flexing Deshaun Watson into primetime right now.
So I'm wondering, is that like I that's what I'm not sure. Is that like maybe that's the Saturday 1 o'clock game or the Saturday 4 o'clock game? I could see New York and Washington, if those two markets are fighting for a playoff spot, you could pitch that as a primetime game. But the best matchup out of those is easily Buffalo, Miami. So like that's the argument that you're getting is, do they just want to put that on Sunday Night Football because Sunday Night Football is the marquee and that's where you want to go? Or is that the easy way to sell a Saturday night primetime game during the stretch where you go Saturdays?
Did anybody watch the Browns today?
Yeah, I did.
That's the game I watched.
How did Watson look? I saw his fantasy points were
pretty terrible. Pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
He was throwing at guys' feet over and over again. My wife was like asking for Jacoby Brissett to be put back in through the entire game.
Wow.
He had wanted nothing to do with this guy. Why don't we put Brissett back in? What is wrong with you?
I mean, it's only the first game.
They scored 3 defensive touchdowns in the game. A punt return and 2 defensive touchdowns, and then all field goals. They didn't score a single offensive touchdown the entire game.
Woof.
Yeah.
That's rough.
So the score looks like 27-14. You're like, oh, Watson must have done okay. He was 12 of 22 for 131 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception, and it was worse than that.
Yikes.
Like, it was worse than those numbers look.
He looked like a guy. It looked like his first preseason game.
Yeah, I mean, so, I don't know that means he's never going to be good again, but he looked as rusty as you could have possibly, he looked as rusty as you could have possibly wondered.
He basically
I'm glad I'm not
had
a Browns
preseason
fan.
game though with Houston, man. Like,
yeah, that's what you get when you play the worst team in the league. Which Houston is easily the worst team.
Yeah, they currently are. And I think what's interesting about the Sunday.
Josh, did you hear? Let me know. Don, I sent the invite, so I don't know if he is able to get on or if I
see him in here. I don't know if he seems to not be able to find either the invite or the request to speak. So I'm texting him on the side here. I'll shoot him another message.
Hey Don, if you see it, just request to speak again if you can, because it was a little strange.
Yeah, Kevin, I sent you an invite and then you had to request it anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know I had to go out of the spaces and then come back in and like ask to join as a speaker. So we're just in a sort of a weird space tonight.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel like Miami's going to give any pushback to the league about getting flexed again? Like we were talking about, that Saturday night game would be a tough 3-week stretch for them.
Oh well, one, it's going to be tough for them no matter what because it's a
right
game of 3 straight road trips and the other 2 are West Coast. So whether it's Saturday or Sunday, it's going to be tough either way. But if they make it the Saturday game, that's really tough to come back from a West Coast trip down to Miami and then turn back around all the way to Buffalo on short rest off a Sunday night game. That I'd be annoyed if I was a Dolphins fan if that happened to us.
The players would lose their day. The players would lose their day off too.
For sure.
On a 6-day schedule. So it's NFL mandated to get a day off on the 7-day schedule. On the 6-day schedule, it's not. So they might lose a day off 2 weeks in a row. With the time change and everything coming back if they come back before the Chargers game.
But ultimately, it's not like they have any recourse, right? Like they can complain, but they can't actually do anything.
Right. I mean, there's no alternative. The only options are Saturday or Sunday. There's no other thing to do. I mean, what do you do? Say, hey, you have to make it a back-to-back double-decker Monday night game? You can't force them to do anything. And
I guess they could push for Sunday, right? I guess at the least.
They could put in a request and say, hey, come on, man, don't make it Saturday. At least give us Sunday. That I think is fair that they could request that.
I think he requested to be a speaker here, Greg.
Okay. While
we're looking at that, did anyone else see the Mario Brothers preview that they just showed at halftime?
I have my TV muted, so I saw it, but I'll have to go listen.
I also had it muted, but man, they showed them racing karts on Rainbow Road, and I got super excited.
Was it an animation or was it real?
No, it looks animated. It looks animated.
Okay.
Yeah, it's animated.
It's so sweet.
Yeah, that's my childhood on a movie screen right there.
For sure. I still think Sunday, because of that reason, Greg, that Sunday's I think Sunday night's pretty likely. I think you would have saw an FCC request for Saturday night, too, because that currently isn't a thing yet. So, I don't know. I think that Sunday night's got some bite to it. I think there's some bite to that.
That might be a legit leak. All right. I sent another one to Don, and I don't have let's see. No, I'm just pressing all the buttons. I think I muted all of you by pressing buttons. Let's see.
Heart.
Yeah, no. The good news is, Greg, we're going to do another one of these 11 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay,
he and
cool.
I with Chris. Chris is going to help us do our first one, and we're going to talk a little bit about this. And then, basically, we're hoping that people can interact with us and, maybe ask some questions about the 90s Bills or, our time there. Maybe not quite as focused on, yesterday and today, but just about, more of the stuff that we talk about on a weekly basis.
Save that question then, the shovel/light situation.
Yeah,
I sure will. That'll definitely come up tomorrow. If it's not answered tonight, it'll definitely come up tomorrow.
Yeah, and everybody, if anybody wants to make sure they join that, be sure you're following at If Buffalo. That's the account that's going to be hosting that one tomorrow morning. Awesome. Wow, that was a wobbly looking field goal right there.
I just got an alert that said I didn't even realize it, but apparently Tua got hurt in the game earlier, and that the alert that came out was that it isn't considered to be serious, but I didn't even realize there was a injury that could be serious or not serious.
Yeah, he's a pretty bad ankle bang up from what they're saying. So
okay,
so
I guess it could be Jimmy G. It could be worse.
Yeah, he could be, and you saw him play poorly too. I think they were trying to make excuses for him based on the report I was watching about why his play was so poor. His ankle was still hurting, but he played through it.
Is it time to start thinking about Tua as being fragile?
He definitely is.
Right?
I mean.
Or just unlucky?
It certainly is. So, Josh, in the midst of Don trying to join our spaces, he started his own spaces.
Well, that's great.
Hey, so, now he knows how to do it tomorrow.
Yeah, so now he knows how to do that. So
I could make a joke that the director of football admin for 13 years. That's why they never made the playoffs.
Wow.
All right. Speaking of which, I actually do have to go pretty soon here. But we've gone for an hour. This has been fun. So Kevin, Chris, anything else for the games today that let's say finish on the Dolphins and the 49ers. When you go back and look at the combination of the first play of the game was a 75-yard touchdown to their like third string fifth option on offense, and on the first drive of the San Francisco game, the San Francisco quarterback fractured his foot and went out for the game. To go from like what the morale felt like at that moment to then watching San Francisco with their backup quarterback and Tua with an awesome head start finish the way it did. How do you feel like that game ended, and how are you feeling about Miami coming forward?
You had the Jimmy G injury in that, and I just thought for sure it was like the craziest scenarios of like badness. And it kind of watched that with the watch of the way we watched the Bengals game after the playoff drought. Like, I think the number one seed's pretty big this year. It's not everything, but I think it's pretty big. So I watched that and was like, well, KC went down early, so that was kind of cool. We have Miami to beat anyways. I'm kind of in the guise of you need to beat Miami anyways.
Yep, I agree.
And to me, so I wasn't overly worried about that. And then San Francisco was on their third. So there was about a quarter where I was like, it doesn't. I mean, Miami's just going to run away with it. But that defense is legit. It was a really nice second half both ways. And it was more of like a Cincinnati's back in this thing. I think that's what I took away from it all. Cincinnati's back in this, and you got to beat them there to maybe get the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you laid it out pretty well there. That San Francisco with their backup was able to take control and ultimately win that game. I mean, and I look back, still thinking about that first matchup between the Bills and the Dolphins, and just everything that the Bills had to deal with, and with not only injuries but guys being taken out of the game because they were dehydrated and bordering on heat stroke, and even with all of that, we almost won that game. And I don't know. I know that the Dolphins they're playing well and they're getting a lot of love from the media, which is deserved, but I just don't think that I'm not too worried about that matchup in Buffalo.
So, Travis Wheeler, I just sent you an invite. If you want to come up and ask a question, I'll give that a shot. And Chris and Kevin, I sent you guys co-host invites in case you guys want to keep it rolling after I drop.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Kevin, is that something that's possible, or?
Yeah, that's fine with me. We can keep it rolling. There's still some listeners. Let's keep the good vibes going.
Okay, I wasn't sure that as a co-host you could keep it going, but that's cool. Good to know.
I saw a funny tweet earlier saying this is the worst Tua looked since the last time he played a top 20 defense.
Oh God.
Well, so that's the hard part, because I have a handful of Dolphins fans in my life, and it was inarguable that he looked good, but I kept going back to say, well, yeah, he looked good, but it was against the Lions, the Bears, the Browns, and the Texans. You're supposed to look good against the Lions, Bears, Browns, and Texans. And yes, they look great. It was 31 points, 35, 39, 30. But he barely squeaked by the Steelers. They lost to the 49ers now. And now looking back, besides the weird heat stroke game with the Bills and the crazy fourth quarter against the Ravens, like, there aren't any good wins. Like, they're all asterisk type wins. So it's going to be curious to see how they handle this coming down the stretch, especially as weather becomes more of a factor, where they're going to finish with games in Buffalo and in New England.
Lions and Texans and Bears. Oh my. I can't help myself.
I think they're a little better than last year's New England plus Tyreek Hill, but it just gives me those vibes. I'm sorry.
But, I mean, Hill and Waddle are very much legit. Those are game-breaking talents who can ruin any game. So, I mean, that's real either way. But
we'll have Trey White back.
We'll
hopefully have Kyer Elam in that game. And I don't know if you guys want to get into the Kyer Elam stuff, but, man, that is a curious development.
So this whole conversation kind of rolls into the question that I was going to ask Greg. This is Travis. So thank you for having me.
What's up, Travis?
Yeah, man.
How much of today, with San Francisco doing what they did to Tua, he turned back into the Tua, turned the ball over that we've seen for the past 2 years, essentially. How much of that was Kyle Shanahan knowing Mike McDaniel's offense probably better than Mike McDaniel does, and San Francisco being able to develop something, and how much is Leslie Frazier going to be able to take from that? Or how much of it was just that's who Tua is, his tackles were out, and Waddle was hurt, and all of those injuries. I'm sure it's some combination of the both, but is there something the Bills are going to be able to take from this specifically to try to slow down this Dolphins team for the foreseeable future?
So I'll start with it. One, you got to remember when they lost to Miami, Tua was 13 of 18 for 186 yards and 1 touchdown.
Right.
And it was on a couple like fluky deep plays. So it's not like Tua lit us up. It was just a super weird game script with just really odd situations coming up over and over again and some weird turnovers at bad times. So I don't know that I felt like super threatened other than like, hey, we've seen Tyreek Hill do crazy stuff against us in a different uniform, so he could do crazy stuff against us again. But I will add, I've seen too much from Tua this year to convince myself that he's just a bust or is never going to be able to do anything or we never have to worry about anything. Like he's shown too much that he's capable of running Mike McDaniel's system with those weapons that he can be a threat. So, he's not a Mahomes or a Burrow or anyone that I'm going to need to actually be worried about, but he's also not a Zach Wilson or a Mac Jones or a guy that like, listen, I'm not worried about that game at all because he can't do anything. He is in the middle for me now and is a guy that they have too much talent around him for us not to take that game seriously, and that we do need to be worried about it because the other 52 are good enough on that roster that Tua can win a game because he's surrounded with talent.
Right. And well, like you said, I believe it was in the week 3 preview show. If either Hill or Waddle goes down, I don't know how effective Tua can be. And we saw that today with Waddle really being limited.
Yeah, it's a great point that he needs all of those weapons there. But if he has them, he can go. And that's a great point that having Waddle either missing or limited was a major factor because then you can tilt all the coverage to Hill, and they don't really have another weapon to threaten you. Chris, what do you think?
Well, I have a question for you guys, and I'm sure that you're all going to say the same thing, which is I was never on this train, but there was. Does anybody still think that Tua has a better argument for the MVP than Josh Allen does?
Oh, yeah, Well, I've reserved myself to the fact that Mahomes is going to win it, but I don't think Tua was ever in a serious running just because too many people would be in the, well, is it really Tyreek or is it really him? Who gets the credit? There'd be some people who would probably, now that, for anyone who's aware, they changed the votes this year. So now both the All-Pro team and the MVP is multiple levels. So you can give 5 MVP votes and it's a point scoring system, just like the Heisman. So just, FYI, like the old debate of, Russell Wilson's never gotten an MVP vote. Now they'll be able to do that. So, they're going to have guys who are first, second, third, votes for the MVP, and it'll go that route. But I was never remotely close to that. But there were certainly people there are people who have been guests on my show in the past who were in that boat.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, does it seem like there's a chance for Josh to get back in that conversation over the stretch run here, or is it kind of too much ground to make up?
The Chiefs losing today and the Bills going back to the number 1 seed, I think Josh would need to end on a real hot streak because we've obviously shifted to more of a balanced offense and less of the gaudy numbers. So right now Mahomes has a healthy lead statistically, but there's also 5 really important games left that, if Josh ends on a heater and they do that by clinching the number 1 seed and Josh is right there neck and neck. I could see, now that it's a weird voting system, I could see, oh, wow, Josh ends up edging him out in votes. I think it's unlikely. I think Mahomes is going to be the MVP, but I think it's feasible. Kevin, you there?
I think there's a path to it. Like, I don't think it's likely or the betting favorite, but there's definitely, we've seen strong finishes by Josh. He's healthy, which is interesting. I think you see some games that he'll really be pushing. I mean, you got a Chicago game there. You got a Cincy game. You have, the hardest defense game really is the Jets.
Funny you mentioned the health. I wonder if that's even a thing where some of the voters take that into account of, oh, the reason there's a statistical gap is because Josh gutted through an injury for a couple of weeks. I wonder if some people take that into account.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing.
If he finishes hot, I think it absolutely can be accounted for.
And the offense has gotten more balanced over the last few weeks too, with the run game coming on. So
the only possibility is they run the table. They clinch the number 1 seed. That Josh looks awesome in the Monday night game against Cincinnati and awesome in the, let's say it's Sunday night against Miami. If those 2 games, Josh is like hero, like, 350, 3 touchdowns, 50 rushing and a touchdown, monster games in those 2 games, they clinch the number 1 seed. The narrative element of that, I think it's possible.
Here's another small thing to consider. The Chiefs do have to play the Broncos twice still. And that defense, does match up fairly well against Mahomes. And I feel like next week might be one of those games where Kansas City could have their little lull. And, if you could get anything from Russell Wilson, they could lose that game.
Yeah, even I don't know about the last sentence there, but
listen,
wishful thinking.
I've already been on old takes exposed once this year. I don't want to go twice.
It definitely could hurt Mahomes' statistical output. I don't know about the losing part.
But there's a non-zero chance.
Yeah, correct. I will say, I legitimately feel bad for this Broncos defense. They are having a ridiculous season. And the fact that they're 3-9 and going to be just wretched when they're going to finish as like a top 3 defense in the NFL. The Cowboys are playing tonight. The Buccaneers play tomorrow. They're going to end this week like second in points allowed, and they're 3-9. It's absurd.
Do you guys remember the game last year where the Broncos had a legit chance to beat the Chiefs? And was it Melvin Gordon fumbled late?
Oh, that's a super good guess if it's not.
And that was another one of those where they had no quarterback, but the defense just shut them down the whole game. And I guess I feel like between that one and then the last game of the year against the Raiders, I feel like I'm not sure that they're a lock to go 5-0.
Yeah, I think they're likely they're going to be a good betting favorite, but I don't think lock is the right word. I mean, anytime you have divisional games, anytime you have, different, weird stuff going on, I think it's likely they win out. And for anyone who's listening, they play at the Broncos next week, at the Texans, home for the Seahawks. That's definitely the toughest one. Then home for the Broncos, then at the Raiders. So the Raiders will still at that point be probably trying to cling to the final wild card spot. They got to win against the Chargers today, so they're not out of it. That Seahawks game will be tough. Obviously, the Texans are terrible, and right now the Broncos, like Josh mentioned, they still have an elite defense. So, Russ has been horrible this year, but it's an elite defense who can play tough. So they probably only have one super easy game with that Texans game. The rest of them, they at least have to show up. The Seahawks are no joke. The Raiders are coming around and playing better here. So it's at least possible. The Raiders ending schedule here, although they're 5-7 and it doesn't look great, they have the Rams, Patriots, Steelers, 49ers, Chiefs. So depending on where the Chiefs are at and what that game is locked into at the end, I think they can get wins against the Rams, Patriots, Steelers and get themselves to 8-7 to where those games at the end really matter.
The Raiders
would not. Geno.
Yeah, the Raiders would love nothing more than to beat the Chiefs in the last game of the year. They played them straight up in Arrowhead earlier this year. That night game, they were right there with them.
30-29. It was a great game. Great game. The Chiefs have a couple late squeak out wins that they didn't deserve that are right there. So they're not, they lost to this Colts team. Obviously the Bills beat them. They're not some flawless juggernaut. All right, I got to call it a night, guys. So we're gonna find out the hard way here. I'm gonna drop, and either I'm gonna end everyone's spaces whether they want to or not, or you guys will continue on. But we're gonna find out in just a moment.
Thanks for doing this, Greg.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey guys, Cover One is excited to announce our new partnership with BetUS. BetUS has a live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business, and an easy deposit and withdrawal process with the fastest payouts in the industry. Our loyal Cover One fans get a choice between 2 exclusive offers, either a 125% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,500 or a free $50 bet with no deposit required. Just use promo code COVER1 on the links provided in the show description below. BetUS, where the game begins.